What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? It is Tuesday. Josh Lockhart here. And hey, it's at the Young Pro Showcase. Every single week, we're bringing training, we're bringing content, we're bringing discussions, and some of the top people as a part of Young Pros in our business and company Legal Shield. And today, we have somebody who's absolutely world-class. Good friend of mine. Actually got to hang out with him and his family in Cabo for the very first time, but I've known of this gentleman for a long time. And so excited. And somebody who I think epitomizes the six-figure lifestyle. So I'm going to bring on my good friend, Mr. Michael Cabradilla. What's up, man? How you doing? Did I say your last name right?
That's perfect, man. I was about to give you some kudos for that because some people, they're just unable to for some reason on the first time. But
yeah.
You, Josh.
Well, hey, it's like, so I'm going to just jump into it, right? This is not... So I can't remember what year it was, but the first time I have a memory of you was back in the day when we used to wear baggy suits, and it was at a company convention. You were on stage. Did you hit platinum?
No, the highest we hit was gold so far.
Okay, it was up there. It was up there, but I think you just hit six figures.
Yeah.
And I remember you were on stage and you were popping off and you were laying it down, and I was like, dude, this guy's making it happen. Like it was one of those, I was like, you got to pay attention to this guy. And you talked about hitting diamond. And that was the first time I'd heard anybody talk about it. And I was like, dude, this guy's a player. What year was that? Do you remember?
If it was the rain, man, that was 2010, I believe. 2010, 2011.
That sounds about right. That sounds about right. So that was a decade ago. Yeah. So here we are on the Young Pro Show, and we're talking about stuff a decade ago. So that was my first memory. I couldn't wait to talk to you to share that. I remember that.
That's awesome.
So if I go back in my notebook, if I go back on my notebook, I have like diamond written out, and I probably have your name at the top.
That's great.
So yeah, man. But anyway, hey, we're here. We're gonna get kicked off. My man Ray Self is in the house. What's up, Ray? Martavius, what's going on, fellas? What's going on, fellas? So if you're gonna hang out with us for a few minutes, just drop in the chat, say I'm here. And you never know. We gave Jared B. We gave Jared B. He's our man. He's always on. We gave him an action day planner. He got his action day planner. Do you have a planner, Mike?
Absolutely, man.
Are you digital? Are you paper? What do you use?
I'm paper. I've been paper for such a long time. It's so funny because I just started putting like reminders in my phone, but I'm all paper, man. Okay.
Well, I'm both. Like, I'm one of those guys. It's like your wife probably, she's like, hey, where did you put? And it's like it's somewhere and you know exactly where it is. But if you try to explain it to her, she's like, you're such a mess. So I got a digital calendar that syncs to my phone and then a paper, right? But the paper is more like to-do list and notes. And then the calendar is the calendar. So I don't know. It works for me. So, but anyway, we'll jump right into it. So that was 2010. So was that the year you hit six figures?
Yeah, that was the year. It was almost exactly 5 years to the date that I got started with Legal Shield. Like literally, like within probably a few days. Okay,
awesome. And so what was your background before? What'd you do?
So when I got started with Legal Shield, I was a bill collector at a mortgage company. So I was 24 years old and had just recently graduated college, like the year before. And I found myself as a bill collector because some of my friends from college also were bill collectors too. So they're like, why don't you become a bill collector with us? So I worked in a call center as a bill collector.
Okay. So I worked in the insurance world, and we had a debit route, which essentially meant you had to go to people's house and collect their monthly premium. Right. You had to go to Aunt Gigi's house and collect her $12.17 for her whole life policy from 1983. It was terrible. So you hit six figures in your 20s.
Yeah.
29.
That's 29. Yep.
I mean, that's kind of like the dream, like six figures in your 20. There's like an Instagram post. It's like, what is it? Grind in your 20s, build in your 30s, and like chill in your 40s or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. I've seen that.
Yeah. So you're like a walking Instagram post. So yeah. But all right, cool. So what was the first 5 years like? I mean, did you get off to a good start? Was it a little bit of a up and down? Like, what was like that for you?
Well, it's kind of interesting because, like, obviously everybody talks about or people have talked about in the past, like the magic of the part-time. Like that was my story in the very beginning, right? So I had my full-time job working as a bill collector. I actually had a couple part-time jobs at the same time too. And I've been a DJ for like 20 years. So that's kind of like, what my world was really about. And I remember, when I first was introduced to Legal Shield, I was invited to someone's living room for their launch party, right? So I ended up being invited over. I ended up being the only person who showed up. And I'm sitting here on this couch. My friend is sitting next to me and her boyfriend's on the other side, who is the person who's actually really doing Legal Shield. And they popped in a video. And I was just thinking to myself, like, why did she only invite me? Like I could invite way more people than just like one person, right? Like if I were to do this thing, right? Like I would be thinking, like, I could do this way better than her. And so I didn't get started right away. I ended up getting started maybe a couple of days after that. And I decided to have a launch party too. So I said, and obviously now we have them on Zoom. So I'm going to invite way more than one person. Like I can invite everybody on my phone. And the truth behind the matter is I ended up having over 40 people show up in my living room when I first got started. And that's how we launched our business. But the challenging thing is that we didn't play the video that we were supposed to play. We played like the completely wrong video. Like it was not Darnell Self and Brian Carruthers, but now that I look back at it, I wish it was. So we didn't have the best start as far as like doing things the right way. But that's how we launched. And then
do you remember what video it was?
So it was the lifestyles video. Remember the video that was like gold? Did you ever see that one?
Yeah.
But it was all lifestyles, but it didn't talk anything about Legal Shield. Like it didn't say like, here's what services do, here's how we help people. No, it was like lifestyles of the rich and famous. Like that was only it.
Yeah, cool. So we did the same thing, but like the DVD was scratched and didn't play. So like we had a house full of people and they're just looking around going, what do we do now? We're like, I don't know. I guess we'll just call it a day. Literally didn't know what to do.
That's funny.
Yeah. So, all right. So, so you did that. So when did you go from part-time to full-time?
So we transitioned in about like 10 months. So the rest of the story after that was, there were a lot of people in the very beginning. Majority of the people who were there at that first launch, they ended up saying no. And it wasn't just like, no thanks. It was like bad no's. It was like hater no's. It was like, oh, that's for you, but don't bother any of our other friends about that. Like it was just like, you're on your own. Like, and I remember, I tried to show the information to one of my uncles too. And he ended up looking at the information, but just like the cover of one of the magazines that we were featured in at the time. And he's like, why are you messing around with this? Why don't you go back to school and become an attorney? And he ended up shoving the magazine back in my face. And I can still remember to this day, like my cousins were like right behind him, like just snickering, like he just got shut up, and I became almost like a joke to some of the people because I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't doing it in the best way. And, but that was what drove me, for a period of time. I was like, you know what, I'm going to prove all these people wrong. I'm going to prove all of these people wrong. And by our 8th month, we made $4,000, that was more than I was making at my full-time job. And then that's where the seed planted in my mind where I'm like, dude, if I can make more part-time here, like, I want to get out of this job. I don't want to be a bill collector. I want to do this.
Yeah.
And, at 10 months, that's when we transitioned. So I, told the boss like, hey, I'm not going to come in anymore. And my last day, I remember it was a Friday, and it was Good Friday of that year. So like 2006, Good Friday, I made it a really good Friday. And that was the last day I ever had a job. And it's been over 14 years now. And I got to share this with you though, Josh. Like, I remember when Monday came around. So I celebrated that weekend. I was like, this is so great. I'm job free. I don't have a job. And then come Monday morning, I was sitting on the couch. And I was telling somebody the story yesterday. I literally sat on the couch and I started crying, man. Like I didn't know what to do with myself. I was like overwhelmed with like, oh my gosh, I don't have a boss. They're not telling me what to do. Like, I'm on my own now. Like, I don't have to clock in. What's next? Like, how do I do this full time? Because I was used to doing like 30 minutes to 2 hours a day on a part-time basis. Now I got this whole day to fill, you know? So
yeah. What do you do? Okay. So man, you just gave me a bunch of questions, right? So number one is, well, a statement. I actually had that happen too. I remember I went to share a guy. It was the, weren't we featured on some like law TV channel, and there was a DVD of it.
I remember like True TV at the time, or in the transition to turning into True TV. Yeah,
True TV. Yeah. So I remember I gave the DVD to a mortgage guy I knew, and he looked at it and he's like, did one of those, and he just tossed it back, and he's like, "Nah, man." But so yeah. Now, did any of your uncle, like that specific uncle or the cousins, ever come back and like do any kind of business with you ever?
So my uncle eventually, probably about 4 years later, he ended up getting the membership. Then he ended up canceling it. But then like 2 Christmases ago, you know, like I got one of those sneaky phone calls, right? Like, hey, Michael, it was my aunt. She was like, hey, Michael, when you get a chance, do you think you can call your uncle? He has some questions about Legal Shield. You know, it's like one of those. And then when he started asking me like, you know, questions that were like, hey, so does Legal Shield help with, you know, I'm just asking these questions just in case. You know, it's not me. Just, you know, asking for a friend, you know.
Yeah.
Questions, and he enrolled for the service again, you know, a second time around, ended up getting that. A few of my cousins did end up getting, you know, the membership. None of them really did anything in regards to the business or anything like that.
Sure.
But we now know this is what I do. So they don't mess with me anymore.
Yeah, no, I think of my my mother-in-law, love her, Pam, if you see this, hey. But she was, when we first started, me and my wife were just dating. You met Michelle. And I'm going on a limb here. I don't think they liked me, you know? Like some young guy dating my daughter. And it was a hard no, you know. It was a hard no. And years go by, and we're at Christmas, and we're sitting in the living room. We're just sitting there, you know, whatever. She's like, hey, does Legal Shield, they do a will, right? I was like, yeah. She's like, I want to get one. I was like, all right, well, cool. She's like, well, sign me up. And I was like, all right, yeah, I'll take care of it. She's like, well, like right now. I was like, all right. So I just like had the laptop in my hand. I went over, signed her up, and like instantly she became like my biggest fan. She was telling everybody, oh, you should get it. You should talk to Josh. She went from like a hard no to like, you know what I mean? I think sometimes I had plenty of people that they're just waiting to see if you're going to stick it out. Sort of something like that.
It's completely true. You know, like, so another story is that when I first got started, literally it was July 4th weekend was coming up. And I remember I ended up signing up as a Legal Shield associate. And the very next day I got on a plane to go visit my mom on the East Coast. She was living in DC and Maryland at the time. And right before I left, I went to the store, and this is how old school this was. I bought a portable DVD player that I could play a video on, like in the car ride from the airport to my mom's house. Cause I was like, man, I got to show her this video. And she didn't give me the time of day. Like, I literally traveled from San Diego, California, all the way over there. And throughout the entire time I stayed there, she wouldn't let me show her information about Legal Shield. She's like, nah, I heard about that thing before. And then a month later, she calls me up. She's like, hey, will Legal Shield help with this? She's like, sign me up. And I ended up signing her up. It saved her $40,000 the first time she used it. My mom became the biggest fan, but she also became the #1 associate on the team for that period of time. And like, I mean, to the point where on Thanksgiving, she went to somebody else's house on Thanksgiving and didn't let them eat dinner until she showed them the video with Darnell Self and Brian Carruthers. She was like, look, we're all watching this video first, then we'll carve the turkey, sit down, watch this video. And then she would call me for a 3-way call, right? She'd be like, hey, Mr. Cabradilla, I'm serious. Happy Thanksgiving. We just showed the video to a room full of people. Can you share your 30-minute story? You know, she used to always say 30-minute. I don't know why she always said 30-minute story. But anyway, and dude, she became so gung-ho, just played the video. She didn't like to talk. She just played the video, and that was it. And I was like, my mom is awesome. Keep going, keep going. Loved it, man.
Man, that's so hilarious. $40,000. Well, it's, you know, in the way she said, like, with the same ferocity she said no, it seemed like that's how she did the business.
Yeah.
Like, you will watch the video. No.
She had the most guts of anybody I've probably ever seen as an associate. She would talk to anyone. But the cool thing is, she would talk to anyone, and she'd be like, "Oh, talk to my son." Talk to anyone. Oh, talk to my son. Talk to anyone. Oh, talk to my son. And that's how she built it.
Wow. I think that's probably a good lesson, right? I've probably thought that. I don't know if I've said it out loud. It's like, but I'm thinking of like different people that were like hard no's, that were like 6 months later was a hard yes, and then like a super fan.
Yeah.
I think of a prospect who was from a team member who was like, that's crazy. That'll never work. That's a bunch of crap, blah, 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 blah. 6 months later, was like, hey, can I get that?
Yep.
And then she was like, everybody has to have this. It's like, what happened? But anyway.
Yeah, you mentioned something earlier and reminded me of something too, like where people just want to know if you're going to stick around, right? Like whether it's our company or, another business, sometimes our friends and family, they just want to know that we're in it for the long haul. They can support us in, the short term, but they want to know if we're going to be around for a while. And we had an associate on our team, and, her grandmother was her number one fan her whole entire life. But her grandmother purposely did not become a member, did not become an associate, because she was testing her. And it was so crazy because a year later, this associate ended up, celebrating her 1-year anniversary. And on her 1-year anniversary in business with Legal Shield, her grandma called her up and said, hey, I'm ready to sign up as a member and as an associate because I just wanted to see if you were going to be here a year from now. And so some of our friends, some of our family members, that's really the case. They want to see like what our process is going to look like. And if we show progress in a period of time or over a period of time and conviction over a period of time, that really, really does say something,
I'm not even surprised that you said that, because I had that exact same thing happen to me. It was a successful mortgage guy, had his own business, had a bunch of employees, and I took it to day one. And he kind of was like a bit patronizing, like, oh yeah, nice thing that you're doing, good luck. And then I think it was like 4 or 5 years later, out of the blue, he was a client of my wife. She cut his hair, and he's like, hey, I need to get a hold of Josh. Like, we need to do business together. And she's like, what? And it was like so random. And he's like, I've been watching you. You've been doing the deal. It's just time. It's just time. I was like, all right. So that's so cool. No, that's so cool. Big lesson for anybody out there. Real quick, if anybody's on watching on YouTube, I just want to see who's on YouTube. So if you're watching from YouTube, just type in YouTube. I would appreciate that. Just want to test it out because I've got two screens going here. But anyway, so something that you said earlier, right? So we were talking about what did you say? You were talking about that. And then, sticking and staying, and oh gosh, totally slipped my mind. I even jotted it down, but happens to me all the time. Scott, thanks, Scott, appreciate that. So anyway, you hit this. Oh, that's what it was. Is all of a sudden Monday morning came. Yeah. Monday morning came, and you're like, what do I do with my time? Did you struggle for a while being self-employed, like? With your day, what do I do? How do I pack it together? That whole thing. And then with that, were you married at the time?
No, at the time I was single, not married, no kids.
Okay.
I mean, at that time I was 25. I was living in the house with some roommates. And so all my roommates, they had jobs. So like that Monday morning, I saw them all leave to go to work. And here I am sitting on the couch in front of the TV. The TV wasn't on. But I sat there and I was like, what did I do? Like, what do I do now? So yeah, for sure. We had some challenges.
So how, cause I dealt with that the same thing. And I was full-time dating Michelle, but then we got married, moved in together. And there was like some, not like arguments or anything, but it was like, she was gone and then came home and was like, why aren't the dishes done? And, I'm like, well, I'm working. And then, just kind of getting that rhythm of what you do every day to like essentially suit up and go to work, even though you're at home, like did that take a while for you to figure out, or did you kind of fall into that pretty quick?
I think like I've always been the type of person who just asks questions to people that I respect, right? So I remember, thinking back to it now, there were times where I'm like, all right, so like, what do you do with your day? Because like at that time, like it was like really cool. It was like really cool to be like full-time Legal Shield, right? Now that I look back at it, honestly, just between you and I, like I probably should have kept the job longer, because people always say, if you have $100 bill and a $50 bill on the table, why not take both, right? And so I probably could have melted a lot longer, having that full-time job, just being a little bit smarter, thinking about what I know now financially, and also because I didn't have anything else to do, like I was just going to sit there on the couch or sit doing something, all day anyway. Yeah. Why not, cash a paycheck here, do this, meet more people, make it like a, fishing pool, for prospects, because there are hundreds of bill collectors in that building, right? Lots of people that work for that mortgage company, like 300, 400 people. And, I could have, taken that time to build more relationships, knowing that I was only here for a period of time and I could have stepped away at any time.
You just canceled all your prospects.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Wow. What's so funny? People who knew me at that time saw that story and they were like, yeah, that's that guy that like just up and left. Like, that was the guy who like did this side business thing and he just like all of a sudden he was gone. Like, I ended up becoming that story in that group of people. Right. Oh, wow. Well, anyways, so here were some of the questions I asked. I was like, so like, what do you do with your day? Like, how do you start your day? How do you end your day? What do you do from like when you wake up to like, later on in the day? Like, how do you structure your day? Had all those questions. And, we spoke about it, obviously, the very beginning of this call was the planner. The planner was such a huge thing for me. And I remember, learning from one of my mentors, Mr. Sean Michael, who's a multi-millionaire club member out here in Southern California. Yeah. And I remember he taught me one simple thing. He said, before your next day starts, you want to write down 6 things that you're going to do the next day to actually further your Legal Shield business. It could be like follow up with Josh. It could be read 10 pages. It could be do 2 exposures, whatever the case might be, and just start with 6 things and get into a habit every single day of just writing those 6 things out and then doing those 6 things the next day. Then I remember his wife, Mrs. Lauren Michael, she shared this a long time ago. And I don't know if she made it up or she came up with it or she got it from somewhere else. But they said the night before or the day before the next day, get into your planner and pretend as if you are the CEO of your business and write out the game plan for your employees for the next day. And then when you wake up the next morning, pretend as if you're the employee. Look at that game plan that's on that piece of paper. Mm-hmm. You better do it, or at the end of the day, you know what? The CEO is going to tell you, like, you didn't do enough, or you didn't finish it. And that was one thing. And another thing that I remember, and this is a really, really simple thing, and I'd say this to people often, and I know it's a little bit different now, especially with COVID season, but I remember asking one of my mentors, so what should I do? I'm working from home. I'm here in the house. And he said, everybody in your house has heard about Legal Shield already. There is no one in your house that you can talk to about Legal Shield. And I know it's different, a little bit different now, but, because we have social media, we can connect with people online, everybody's virtual. But, an object that's in motion will continue to stay in motion. So at that time, I forced myself to get out of the house, to put myself in places, whether it was a Starbucks, a grocery store, just out and about where I could possibly run into somebody. So even though we're home based, we don't have to be homebound, right?
I used to do the same thing. I would say, okay, I need to leave the house by 9 o'clock or whatever the time was, just because it not even to meet people. Obviously that's like a byproduct, but it was like, if I didn't, then you get those lazy habits. Right. You take an extra 30 minutes eating breakfast, I could, just click on the TV for a minute, do all those types of things. So I'd leave and, I got
Are you spying on me?
What's that? Yeah. I got you, man. Once you've been around so long, it's like, we kind of get the same things. It's like, yeah. I was there. I remember, all right. Do you play video games at all?
The only game that I play and have played is Madden on PlayStation. Like, okay.
That's it. So I was a big Halo guy back in the day.
Yeah.
And this was probably 2010. I had an Xbox, and I'm just going to play Halo for a minute, just a minute. You know, a minute turned into 10 minutes, 10 minutes turned into way too long. And so one day I was like, all right. And I just got rid of it. I gave it to my friend. And that was that, right? I'm like, okay, I see this as a problem. So I'm with you.
That's the thing with like streaming like media now, right? Like whether it's Netflix or Prime Video or whatever you're watching. I mean, you can get sucked in so much. And, 1 hour turns into 2, 3, 4. Now, like you're not even getting enough sleep. It gets crazy,
Yeah. I see Ray Self. Halo. Yeah, Ray. We're gonna have a Halo party. I don't even know if that's a thing anymore. So I canceled my cable in 2006. There was what was it? CSI, I think was big at that point. And they were hour-long shows, and I watched like 4 of them in a row until like 2 or 3 in the morning. I woke up the next day, and I sold insurance. I'm like dragging in the office, and I'm like, all right, that's it. Cancel the cable. We got to get rid of it. People are like, you don't have cable? What's wrong with you? And I was like, hey, man.
It's crazy that you mentioned that because, like, okay, so I mentioned to you before, like, my background is a DJ, right?
Yeah.
And I remember, and I was actually reading, I was reading a couple pages in the Compound Effect, just yesterday, right? And Darren Hardy was talking about, how like when you have like a glass, like a dirty glass of water, right? The way that you can clean that dirty glass of water is by pouring like clean water into it. And if you pour enough clean water into the dirty water, it'll eventually be clear, right? So it's the same thing with like personal development. And so I remember hearing an audio in the very beginning of my business, and it said, what is something that you can give up right now that you can give up for a period of time or give up forever, right? To be able to put in better business habits to build your business right now, right? And the CD or the audio set that I was listening to, that person who was on the audio set loved playing, I think it was like baseball or something like that, right? So that person gave up baseball, or it was like bowling night or something. They just gave up baseball, gave up bowling night or something. And at this point, like, DJing, like it was a part of who I was, right? Like, it was obviously a business. It was something I did on the side, but it was me being an artist too. Like it was like my way of like, just, stress relief even. But I shut it down. I said, you know what? I can always be a DJ again, like later on. So I shut the DJ business down. I literally took the antenna off of my truck at the time, so I couldn't get reception on the radio. I took out all of my music CDs, like from my car, like all of them, right? Like I'm a DJ, taking away all my music. I took away all of my music, so I couldn't listen to it because some of the music that I was listening to and getting into my head was really affecting me negatively. And the only things I put in my truck at the time were personal development CDs, and one of them was John Addison's, never accept advice from anyone more screwed up than you are. Every single day, you can find it on YouTube, by the way, but I would listen to it every single day. And just I can quote things from it, right? But the other thing I did, and I'm telling you this because you were talking about the TV, I took a permanent marker. This isn't a permanent marker, but I literally took a permanent marker. I don't know why I didn't just unplug the TV or put it away. I had this small TV, like VCR combination in my room, and I took a permanent marker and I scribbled over the whole. It was a glass, like a glass, TV. So I was like scribbled over the whole entire thing. So even if I turned it on, like there would be the scribbles on it, right? So that was one thing that I sacrificed too. So it was the TV, but it was also the music. And, being a DJ, the music thing was a huge thing for me to really put aside because I wanted to develop myself.
Yeah. Oh, I see her. So yeah, I think, you probably just like the finality of the marker. It's like, there's no way I can watch this. I'm saving me from myself. I love it. My girl's
in the picture.
Yeah. Well, that's a good segue. Thanks, honey. Appreciate that. So, how long have you been married?
So we just celebrated 9 years, actually, this past summer.
Ooh, when's your 10th?
10th is July 30th of next year, man. July 30th.
Ours is September 2nd.
Oh, awesome! Congratulations.
Yeah.
We got some stories, man. But I was saying, like, we purposely made them around kind of the Performance Club trips. So you take a honeymoon every year, kind of. But we'll see.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. And all right, so coming up on 10 years, and your oldest is what? She's 5?
He's 8, actually. The oldest is 8, the youngest is 5.
I think we talked about this. I think it's because they're so tall that I thought that yeah, you got a couple.
What are you trying to say? What are you trying to say? Some Filipino?
I'm just saying you got a couple of tall kids. Yeah. No, that anyway. So yeah, what's so the working from home, the business from home, the 6 figures, like talk to me a little bit about some things. And it doesn't even have to be like, I know obviously we're both like super family oriented. Our families were hanging out in Cabo, but what are some things that you're able to do today that just simply wouldn't be possible if you either A, weren't making the money you're making, or B, working a 9 to 5? I'll start. This is so simple, right? Like people, like a lot of times you talk about this and they're thinking big things. Like I just don't get, especially right now, like with the shutdowns and stuff. Like I know people who had to literally like quit their job because like who's going to take care of the kids? And it's like if one of the girls gets sick, no problem, we're here anyway. We don't have to worry about that. Like that, we talk about that all the time. I'm like, how do other people do it? I don't know. I guess they figured out. But what are some things that you've noticed?
Let me take you back just a little bit, and then I'll come to like what's going on today. But being able to become job free at like 25 years old, like doors just kind of open as far as like what are the things that I can do now that I've been able to get rid of the time. Like, because if you really think about it, if somebody's working 40 hours a week and you multiply that by 50 weeks in a year, that's 2,000 hours that you're like devoting towards something in a place where sometimes you don't even want to be at, right? So imagine, I haven't had a job in 14 years. You multiply that by 2,000 hours. That's 28,000 hours over the past 14 years that we've been able to allocate towards where we want to allocate it towards. Like, that's the way that I think. It's not just the money, but it's the time stuff, right? Yeah. And I remember, taking a guy's trip to Europe and checking my daily deposits like every single night, like while we were, in different countries in Europe, right? I remember going down to Brazil.
That's over 3 years, by the way. That's over 3 years. I just had to do the math.
Yeah, wow, that's awesome. See, 3 years of time Legal Shield has given me back, like 3 full years, by the way. But I remember going to Brazil, Rio de Janeiro for Carnival, guys trip, right? And just remember, we were on one of the trips, and there was only one of the guys that was on that trip with us who actually became a Legal Shield associate and actually did something, right? But on the trip before, when we were in Europe, he turned to me, he said, "Hey, Mike, like Legal Shield's really working for you, isn't it? Because out of everybody who's here, like you're the only one who doesn't have like a job. Like when we go back, like we have to go to work like the next day after we get back from this trip." And I remember him saying that, and I was like, wow. I remember going on a missions trip, to Indonesia to work with an orphanage out there. Guess what? That trip was paid for by the income, that Legal Shield has afforded us, right? So I think about that, and I remember talking to one of my cousins, one of the ones who was snickering at one point. And she told me, she's like, and she had a daughter. He still has a daughter, obviously now, but her daughter was young at that time. And she's like, I want to do something like that also, because I would love for my daughter to see me in that light of like traveling on like a humanitarian trip, right? Like that. And it's like, it's like little things like that, little conversations or little things that people have said to me, throughout the years that have made it worth it. Now, yeah. I remember even getting married. Again, when we got married, I stroked the biggest check, that I've stroked ever up until that point. And guess what? It was back in our bank account within about 2-3 weeks because of the income that Legal Shield has afforded us, right? So it wasn't something like, oh my gosh, we're going to be in debt for the next handful of years because we threw this huge party, right? It wasn't anything like that. And when my daughter was, she was going to be born about a month later, my wife, she decided to go on maternity leave And, you know, somebody else said this before, but she went on eternity leave because she never went back to work, right? But I can't tell you what it felt like and it feels like to know that my wife, it's not just me, but my wife has been job free for over 8 years.
Yeah.
Like she hasn't had to go to work. Like, you know, she has a home bakery, you know, that she has her baking business. She loves to do it. You know, it's good side money as well. But she hasn't had a job in 8 years. Like, it's not just me. And then my mom, right? Like, I didn't mention this earlier, but my mom, she passed away 4.5 years ago. But before that, she was also job free because of Legal Shield for the last 10 years of her life.
Wow.
And so what I'm sharing with you guys is that it's not just like what's going on right this very moment and what are we able to do, but when you look at it over a period of time, my mom, you know, she used to work 80 hours a week, right? So you multiply 4,000, 4,000 hours times 10 years. I mean, that's a lot of time, right? And the cool thing is my mom was able to spend that time with us. And instead of like, being frustrated that I didn't spend enough time with my mom when she passed, it was like, wow, we spent a lot of time with each other. Like we were at conventions together. We were at weekly briefings together. We were, hanging out, as a family. Right. And then what you mentioned as far as like people having to have their kids go into daycare, I heard somebody else say it, but it's part of my story now. Instead of our kids being in daycare, they're in our care, right? Because of Legal Shield. Like I mean, you think about it, our daughter's 8, right? You'll multiply that 22,000 hours a year times 8, that's 16,000 hours. Plus my wife, 8 times 2,000, that's 16,000 hours. 16 plus 16 is 32,000 hours, but not 32,000 hours that's we've been able to allocate somewhere else. That's 32,000 hours that we've been able to allocate towards our daughter. So you can't sit there and you can't tell me that the 32,000 hours that my wife and I combined have been able to invest in our daughter over the past 8 years doesn't mean anything.
Well, and I'm hearing people say in my head, like, oh man, you don't understand. I don't have time. I got kids. And it's like, but you don't understand how much time, like you could pick up an extra 32,000 hours, right? If you just, did something about it. So, yeah. Wow. Do you have any like, is it like engineer in the family or anything? You just, you break everything down to how many hours. I'm like, this is impressive.
I'll tell you this, because that, those hours, the reason why I break down those hours is that those hours, they came from a napkin training that I created myself. Like I was at a business or an open house, right? After the open house, we go to the meeting after the meeting and I'm sitting there in the restaurant. And I'm thinking like, all right, this is what my life used to look like. Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 is when I worked. That was roughly about 40 hours a week. And when I transitioned from being part-time Legal Shield to full-time, I was able to take those 40 hours that week and do whatever I wanted to with it. And I was like, wow, if you multiply that out, like, it was just me drawing on a napkin and just realizing the power of being able to be a part of an opportunity, a business that you can build around your life instead of having to build your life around your job. Right. So, I've talked about it a lot.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And real quick, if anybody wants to follow Michael, if you're on Facebook, you can click on his profile in the comments. If you're on YouTube, his links are in the description. Got your Facebook and your Instagram there. I put them there so people could follow you. And please, be kind, support the young pros. Hit the like button. You can subscribe on YouTube. Appreciate that. But anyway, man, it's funny. So now that we're like virtual, it's like I was talking. We have different events across the country. They're all virtual events, and somebody said, "Oh, I'm going to be on an event in Georgia, or I'm going to be on an event in New York," and I just laugh. I'm like, well, no, you're on the internet. You just, it's just a funny thing that we say when you stop and think about it. But, for a long time, it's like you lived in California. I lived in Michigan on the East Coast. It's like, there's so many people that I know now that like, I saw them maybe at convention somewhere, but I never talked to or anything like that just because, you don't ever travel those ways. But now it's like, I'm getting to hang out with you. And of course we met in Cabo and stuff. And it's like, you meet these people and you're like, man, I like this person. They're a pretty cool person. I'm just kind of shocked. We've both been around for so long and, never really got to hang out or anything. So I appreciate you taking the time and hopping on. you'll have to say hi to the girls for us. So
Yeah.
will you guys be in Mexico?
We have our flights booked.
That's
as far as we have right now. God willing, that everything, works out properly, man. I know that, we're definitely in interesting times right now, right?
Well, for sure. So yeah. Fingers crossed. I'll see you there. So before we get out of here, any parting words of wisdom for anybody aspiring to be where you're at, whether it be the family or the finances?
I was thinking about it earlier today, and I remember I had some challenges with believing that I could actually make this thing happen. And this was before, getting the 6-figure ring. This was, I remember going on one of these performance club trips. And at the time, it was only executive directors and above that were able to go on this one particular trip. And like I mentioned earlier, I really love asking questions to people that I look up to, mentors and things like that. And I remember thinking like, dude, can I really get the 6-figure ring? Like, can I actually do this? Can I make $100,000 a year, with Legal Shield? Like, can I actually do this? And I remember going to people that I really looked up to, like Darnell Self, Brian Carruthers, Dave Savula, anybody I could ask, and I just say, hey, do you really believe that I could earn 6 figures with Legal Shield? And I would soak in whatever, because all of them said yes, obviously, right? Like, they're not going to you'd be like, no, you can't do it. I don't believe in you. But I needed to borrow people's belief, right? So like, if you on the line, needs, to just, reach out to someone and just ask somebody to just borrow their belief in you, and just ask someone in your support team, ask the people that you look up to. Because after that particular point, I was like, wow, all these people really do believe that I can get this thing done and I can do this. And I really look up to them. Let's go out there and make it happen. But to make it happen, though, it really did take some planning out. And congratulations, by the way, on 6 figures, Mr. Lockhart.
Hey, appreciate that.
And, everybody does, different thing, a little bit, just does things a little bit differently. But I'm sure in your run, there was a lot of tracking. There was a lot of things that were purposeful in regards to making sure that on a daily basis, this is what I was focused on. This is what I tracked, and I know how close I am, and I'm going to get it done. So it went from I needed belief, then it went to let me put it on pen and paper and track it every single day, knowing that, so I can see how close I am to the next, whatever the next point is. So just share that.
That's incredible. No, completely agree. So again, very much appreciate you hanging out. And for everybody in the comment section, hope you did give Michael some love, a comment, a heart, whatever. But anyway, a laugh, an emoji, a fire emoji. We love fire emojis. So yeah. Oh, I was going to ask you, isn't Anthony Washington, isn't he working with you? Is he one of your guys?
Yeah, Anthony's great, man.
Yeah. We got him looking good with his Zoom kit, man.
Yeah, thanks for that, man. He's very, very appreciative and well deserving of that. I saw that, that clip that you guys did a handful of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And he crushed it, man. Honestly, I was on my couch watching it, and my wife was kind of on the side listening in. And she was like, tears came to her eyes, and
I know.
So proud. She's like, was that Anthony? And, she was just very proud. And so thank you for, what you're doing in the young pros, and for supporting everybody out there, man.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Well, you have a good one, everybody. We'll see you next Tuesday. We'll be back 6 p.m. Eastern, another Young Pro Showcase. You can go to youngproshowcase.com. That'll take you to our YouTube channel. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next week.